Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is going to be November's Games Leaving the Collection video, in which I, unsurprisingly, talk about the games that are leaving the collection this month. And November was a good month in the sense that most of the new games I played this month, I think actually all of the new games I played this month, are actually sticking around, at least for now, which means this time, unlike other times, this list is going to be comprised exclusively of games that I pulled off the shelf, looked at, and said, you know what? It's time to move on, because there are generally three reasons a game leaves the collection. It's either a new game and it's just not sticking around, or it's an older game that I pulled off the shelf and I just don't feel the love quite as much, or for most of this list it's going to be games that I looked around the room and tried to figure out what I can get rid of, because new games are constantly coming in and you always have to get rid of something. And so that's basically most of the list today. I saw a comment on my last video, I think it was last month's video, in which they said that the games in my collection must feel like the toys from Toy Story, just wondering what Andy's going to throw out next or stop playing with. And, well, if I got rid of these games, it's usually because I stopped playing with it a while ago, and now I'm just making the decision to move on from those games. To begin with, troll that I am, Besieged is not making the cut. It's not. It's staying in the collection for today. But it's here for a reason. It's not purely to fake it out. It's because I pulled it off the shelf. I pulled Besieged off the shelf. I'm trying to figure out how to make room for all the games, both mentally and physically. Primarily mentally and physically. Both time to play and physical space. And so I frequently have to figure out what's going. And I looked around the room and I pulled Besieged off the shelf. While I like Besieged a lot, it doesn't see table playtime in comparison to Black Plague, to Cthulhu Death May Die. Both of those very much have that same powers and abilities and fun cooperative system going on in different ways. And Besiege is also different, and yet I always pull the other two off the shelf more. And so I pulled Besiege off the shelf and refused to get rid of it because I'm going to hold on to it for now. It might show up another month. It might come again. I don't know. But I'm going to hold on to it for now. I'm going to maintain the illusion of holding on to this one, of keeping this game in my collection, and instead I looked around my room and I found something else that I was willing to trade instead, and that something else is Seasons. Seasons is a game that I actually initially decided to keep, but then after looking at Besieged, I was like, I have to give up something, and so I chose Seasons instead. And Seasons is going to be a game that I've had for quite some time. I got rid of it, and then I got this one back. And in Seasons, what you're going to do, it has two phases to the game. The intro draft phase, where you choose the cards you're going to be playing with throughout the game, and then from there you go into the various seasons and the years and the ages or whatever it is in order to utilize the combination of cards you drafted plus the cards you drew in order to most efficiently build your point generating system. And in the game, the primary thing you're generally doing is trying to earn crystals. Crystals are going to be points in the game. And there's a variety of ways you can do it. You can turn different energy into crystals. You can earn crystals directly. But ultimately, the fun of the game, the core of what makes Seasons so much fun and why I do recommend you check out Seasons and potentially add it to your collection, is the drafting and the cards and abilities and the powers. It is so much fun to draft a good hand of cards, and throughout the course of the game, take actions and abilities that let you draw more cards, continuously generating a better and better combination of abilities and powers that will ultimately let you more efficiently turn energy into crystals, or take crystals from your opponent, or do whatever to win the game. It is specifically the cards that make this game fun. The rest of the game I actually find a little bit, the trading in, the whole crystal system is a little bit tedious at times, which is why, despite me liking the game, despite me having both expansions inside this game, it is one that sadly is leaving my collection, and sadly is the key word, but we just don't find ourselves playing it anymore. And next up on that list, we have Deus, and Deus is one that I actually have a review going up Saturday, so if you watch that, you sadly know how that review is turning out, which is a problem in terms of putting up reviews and then doing timing of videos is a big deal. We'll deal with it another day. But in Deus, what Deus is going to be, Deus is going to be a light Civ game abstracted in which you're going to be drawing these you're going to be drawing cards in the game and then putting those cards into your tableau to activate the chaining of cards. And similar to Seasons, that is fun. The abilities, the powers, the drawing more cards and then discarding your cards to get a bunch of resources or money or something, and then having a new hand of cards and figuring out which ones will combo and daisy chain to produce the most efficient card row. You see, every time you play a card to a row, what you're going to do is you're going to activate not just the card you played, but every single other card in that row. And that's fun, because then you have have these 5 different columns representing 5 different types. You have economy and resources and military and a bunch of stuff, and you're going to be activating those card rows every single time, and that's so much fun to daisy chain those rows. And unlike Seasons, the rest of the game around it I find to be merely okay. It's a fun power and ability system around an okay system, an okay engine, and like Seasons, I would happily play Deus. I would recommend you check out Deus and potentially add it to your collection, but it's one that isn't seeing the table, and it's one that I just don't have it in my heart to fight to keep this game going, and so it is going away for now. And from there we move to Mandala, and it's worth noting, by the way, this is a shorter video than usual. I don't have a host of games, but the last one you'll want to stick around for. Or just check the timestamps down below, because I timestamp everything, and the surprise is ruined, the mystery is gone, oh wherefore art thou mystery? In any case, Mandala is a 2-player game, and this is one that I got it initially. I don't remember when I got it, but I got it. I played it again and again and again, and then I haven't pulled it out since, and I've constantly looked at it. Every time I've done a video of the games leaving my collection, I've looked at Mandala to debate whether this time it is going away, and every time I'm like, no, it's a good game, I'm keeping it, and yet I just don't have the energy to pull it out. Something about the game doesn't deliver the experience I'm looking for. In this game, what you're going to be doing is there's these cards, and the cards go into there's a few different regions the cards can go into. They can go into a center region, they can go into the gardens, I believe, or the mountains. I can't remember the names of the different zones. What you're trying to do is you're going to get these cards, both to determine how much each card is worth, as well as just to get the cards. And they have this fascinating interplay in the way you earn these cards, in what you have to do to fight back and forth in this 2-player game in order to earn the different piles in the center, and then figure out the cascading scoring system. And in this game, if you do it right, it's not about getting the most cards, rather it's about getting the right cards, because you can define as the game progresses which color card scores for how many points, which means you might have more cards than I do, but my cards, I have a whole bunch of greens, and my greens are scoring 5 points each, and you just have a whole bunch of cards, but none of your 5 or 6ers are really getting you much. And so precision is far more important than just getting everything. This is very much quality over quantity in Mandala. And yet, I'm just not drawn in enough to play it. I liked my first few games. I played all of those games in a 2-week period, and then I just never really felt the draw to pull it out again. I just think in this genre of game, in this style of 2-player game, I pull out other things. I pull out Hanamakoji if I want something fun and accessible. I pull out Patchwork, different games, but there are different styles of games that I pull out if I want a 2-player head-to-head experience in Mandala. No matter how good I believe it is, no matter how much I believe you should try it out, is one that I'm just getting rid of. And that's a key thing in this list, by the way, is the fact that since there's not a single game in this list that I played this month and just decided to move on from, that means everything I'm getting rid of this month is something that I had some degree of memory, of value that I attached to it, in the sense that I kept it for a while before eventually moving away from it, which means that, at least in my opinion, these are certainly worth checking out, certainly worth potentially adding to your collection, although the keyword is potentially. And Cryptid is one I did a review on back before I really did reviews. But when I first started the channel, there were a handful of reviews that I kind of did off the cuff stuff, where I talked about games I played, Cryptid, Architects of the West Kingdom, maybe 1 or 2 others, and then I kind of drifted away from reviews before coming back to it over time. And Cryptid is one that I mentioned back then. I mentioned when I did that review that I value what this game is doing. I think it's incredible. I think it's unique. And I also think that it might one day leave my collection. And I said that at the time specifically because Cryptid is a logic puzzle of a game. It is a game in which you will outdeduce your opponents, which means if you are better at, logic puzzles, then you are already at an advantage. And more specifically, if you are better at Cryptid, you're even more so at an advantage. This game is incredibly unique by Osprey Games. This game, you're going to be trying to figure out the specific location of the Loch Ness Monster or whatever it is. And there is a specific location. It will share strains. It will share aspects of similarity to Tobago, which is actually still in my collection, but it has a difference in the sense that in Tobago you are creating the location that you're trying to find, versus in Cryptid there is an actual specific location on the board. And all of the players at the table possess one clue that the combination of those 4 clues or 3 clues or whatever, how many player game you're playing, that will tell you where the monster is hiding. And so as the game progresses, you put out different markers representing where the monster may be or where it may not be. And slowly but surely you can eliminate the different types of clues that are on, which means there, obviously, if Jack put out a not clue marker on water, well, he can't possibly have any of these possible configurations of clues. And you slowly but surely work your way to a common understanding of what must be other players' clues, and you, of course, know your own. And so it's simultaneously trying to hide your information while gathering others' information, and it is very unique and very well done. But at the time, I said I might get rid of it one day because I think that there is going to be a gap that widens over time. The more one player plays this game, the more they will inherently be at an advantage compared to other players. The more quickly they will be able to see and establish those patterns that other people new to the game won't. And so I find Cryptid doesn't get pulled out anymore. It hasn't been pulled out for months because of that aspect, because I know walking into this game I am most likely going to win, or have to completely and totally pull my punches, which just is not a rewarding way to play this game. And so Cryptid is good. Cryptid is great. If you're playing it consistently with the same players, I do recommend getting it. And if you aren't playing it consistently and you just want something that will be fun, good for 5, 10 plays before eventually that gap occurs, well, Cryptid is worth checking out. From there we move to Sun Tzu, which is a game that I don't recall if it's ever been in one of my videos for games leaving the collection, but I have gotten rid of this once before, and then I got it back as a favor to a friend. And Sun Tzu is an excellent 2-player game. I played this one a long time ago, and then eventually as time went on, I found myself not playing it. I found myself preferring other games that do similar things, but do them better or shorter, or in some way more appealing to myself. And that aspect of Sun Tzu is this idea of outplaying your opponent, of where you're going to have these different battle arenas, and there are going to be different cards that each player has, and you want to try to figure out how to play cards face down to different areas in a way that perfectly deduces or outthinks your opponent and what they will do. Perhaps I'll put down 6 new troops in this area, you'll put down 2, I'll win this area, I'll cascade my troops over there, perhaps you'll put down Plague, destroying half the troops in this area. You're trying to outthink your opponents by putting cards face down and then revealing them as you slowly but surely go through your deck of cards and use all the abilities. And Sun Tzu, it's very good, do not get me wrong. I think this game is excellent. I had it for a long time before getting rid of it. But I got rid of it because I have other games that I think do similar things in a shorter, more accessible, more appealing way. And Hanamakoji is going to be a great example of that. Hanamakoji very much has that bluffing, outthinking your opponent situation going on, but it does that in 15 minutes as opposed to Sun Tzu's 45 minutes to an hour for the game. I think Sun Tzu is excellent. I just don't think it's an hour excellent. And the problem is I got it back because, well, my friend asked me to get it back, and that's usually a good enough reason. He said, it's a good game. I think you're wrong. It's better than Hanamakoji. And I got it back, and we got it to the table once, and then he's never asked for it since. And I think it's great. I'll never turn down a game of Sun Tzu. It's an excellent experience, but if no one's asking to play it, and I'm not asking to play it, well, eventually it has to go. And then we have Undaunted. Undaunted is a tough one. This is one that, I got rid of Undaunted specifically because of Dire Alliance, I believe it is. Dire Alliance, a Kickstarter that I recently just passed on. It made me think about the fact that Undaunted is not seeing a play as much as I would like. Now, Dire Alliance is from the creators of, Alter Quest or whatnot. It's from the Sailor Brothers, but it's also by David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, who also did Undaunted and War Chest, and it very much has that similarity in those systems in terms of this is going to be a deck building game, and one that is very unique in what it does. The decks are tied to your troops on the board, and as you draft more cards into your deck, you can activate those troops more, because you can only activate it twice if you only have 2 cards in your deck until you shuffle. But if you have 5 of one troop, that troop will activate far more, especially in comparison to your other troops, which can lead to a strategy where you double down on the right troops for the right time, for the right situation, and then as your troops take wounds, those cards will move from the game, so your opponent, your enemy, can slowly but surely weed out the cards and the life force of your troops in this game. It's the same system that exists in War Chest, and it's the same system that exists in in Dire Alliance. And from those, I canceled my pledge for Dire Alliance because the theme doesn't pull me in enough. I think I am keeping my eye peeled for whether they have successive games in that genre that I would potentially be more interested in getting my hands on. But at the same time, I realize Undaunted Normandy is just not seeing play anymore. While I like the system that it has, I think I like it best in War Chest. And even War Chest, I would say, nothing's ever truly safe, but War Chest also hasn't seen play in a while. But at least thinking in terms of what I want to play and what I'm not quite as in the mood to play, War Chest is much more accessible. It's more abstract. I prefer that. I'm not really sucked into the World War II world in general in any game. It's usually something I reluctantly play rather than a theme I'm specifically looking for. I like the abstract nature of War Chest far more. It's far more appealing in both the design as well as its accessibility. Undaunted, while not strictly speaking a campaign game, does have this campaign you can play through and slowly but surely do each mission. It begs me to try to go through would, and I find myself less willing to jump into a random mission, although that's a problem with me, not a problem with the game. Versus War Chest, it's more accessible. You draft your troops, you build your army, and then you go at it with your opponent, and I like that abstract feel more, as well as, like I said, the visual appeal of the game. So, the two games are similar enough in what they are trying to do that I eventually decided one of them will stay and one of them will go, and Undaunted Normandy is the one that is sadly going. Which brings us to the big reveal. The big reveal, and if for those who didn't click on the timestamps down below looking to figure out what is leaving the collection. And I guess probably they won't be in the thumbnail. Maybe I'll keep the thumbnail as these games, or maybe we'll throw, you know what, let's throw Besieged in there so we can throw a great thumbnail on the photo. This is me posing for my thumbnail as we speak. There we go. Great. Awesome. Good. There's our thumbnail right there. But the last game that we are going to be bringing to the table this week is going to be Seventh Continent. Seventh Continent is leaving my collection. And that is because, as much as I like Seventh Continent, and I do like Seventh Continent, and I teased at the potential of this happening, and I didn't make up my mind for a while, but I finally did, and I'll tell you why. But Seventh Continent was at risk the second I played Seventh Citadel. I like Seventh Continent a lot. Forget that, I love Seventh Continent. I think that Seventh Continent delivers an amazing experience, an amazing journey, and one that everyone should try out. I'd also say that the retail version will give you that experience. You don't need to go full double box Kickstarter getting tons of extra stuff that is great if you eventually make your way through all the content, which I definitely have not. I've gone through like 2 curses in the game, and don't get me wrong, 2 curses in this game is like 15, 20 hours of content, depending on if you fail, how many times you have to go through it. 20 hours of a game is far more than I play of most games, to be frank, but at the end of the day, Seventh Continent is going to... I've had a hard time pulling this one out ever since I played Seventh Citadel. You see, Seventh Citadel, to me, delivers a better experience that is basically the same game, but better. Now, it also is more involved, so if you're watching this, do not immediately assume you should get rid of Seventh Continent. Seventh Continent might be a better game for you. But while it is more involved, and that does put it at a disadvantage, while it does have a campaign aspect, and that also puts Seventh Citadel at a disadvantage, at the end of the day, the actual story of what was going on, at least in what I had the opportunity to play, was so much more involved. Seventh Citadel, I actually cared about the characters. I actually wanted to know what happened next. I actually wanted to reveal the next card to figure out what was going on. For the Seventh Continent has this theme of you're an explorer and you're kind of trying to figure things out, but there's no real story. There is a sense of exploration, to be sure, but not a sense of unraveling a true story. It's more kind of unraveling the throes or the thoughts or whatever it is that kind of happened before. So there is a slow reveal, but it's not nearly as invested as I am or was in Seventh Citadel. And then combine that with that game, the fact that I have Tainted Grail coming, and then combine that with the fact that ISS Vanguard is also delivering an incredibly immersive, long, ridiculously long story. And I just think that I don't have space for Seventh Continent, when I have Seventh Citadel coming, and they are basically exactly the same. Comparing it to Tainted Grail, comparing it to ISS Vanguard, any of those, that's a different story. They are different games, to be sure. But this is basically Seventh Citadel, but different strains of the same game, and for me, I prefer a Seventh Citadel. And that's the big one that's leaving this month. In any case, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this month has definitely been an interesting one. Lots of games, well, not lots of games, fewer games leaving than usual, but lots of games staying, lots of games constantly being added to the collection, and we'll see what happens for December. Until next time, have a good one.